So welcome everybody.
Thank you very much, Ian, and a very warm welcome to everyone. We are very much looking forward to the discussions today. Our session is going to focus on developing unarmed civilian protection and accompaniment as a community of practice. And we are really looking forward to hearing from people who have already done this, the benefits, the challenges, and opportunities. So this morning, we are going to be co-facilitating with Mel. So let me introduce myself and then he'll introduce himself. My name is Fatuma Ibrahim. I'm a member of the board of Nonviolence Peace Force, and I'm joining in from Mombasa at the coast of Kenya. Mel, please, over to you.
Thank you, Fatuma. My name is Mel Duncan, and I'm credited with being one of the co-founders of Nonviolent Peace Force, but actually David Hartso and I more accurately held the focus so that many people could come together and create Nonviolent Peace Force, and are still creating Nonviolent Peace Force. And I am currently located in a very dark and very cold St. Paul, Minnesota, in the United States.
Thank you very much, Mel. And in fact, we would like everybody to introduce themselves in the chat. Go to rename, put the name you'd like us to use, your organization, and where you are calling from. We'd like to know which parts of the world people are joining from. And as we do that, I will present the agenda. So we have two speakers. I can see one of them is already on board. We hope the second one will be joining. So they'll give us the experiences on how the benefits and challenges of community of practice. And then we will have a small group discussion. We'll go into, I can see I think we can have at least 2 breakout groups. And then after that, we'll have the presentation in the plenary. And thereafter, we will do the wrap up. We are hoping to finish within 1.5 hours. We've started a little bit late, but I hope we'll catch up with time. Now I'm going to request Mel to give the objectives of the session. Over to you, Mel.
Thanks. What we would like to do today is most importantly explore how UCP accompaniment peace teams, our work goes by those names and others, but how we can form a community of practice and explore whether it would be beneficial to us and worth our effort, and also look at the challenges of forming such a community of practice. By the end, we would like to collect a list of people who are committed to building a community of practice, and also look at if there are, if we can develop a list of how we can collaborate as a community and what that might look like. And then finally, to identify those people who are interested in helping to develop a face-to-face gathering that we have scheduled for the week of June 13th right now in Geneva. And of course, all of that is dependent upon the pandemic. And so we will be either having it face-to-face in June, or if necessary, postpone it till later in 22. And we will need a number of people from the various peace team accompaniment and UCP organizations to come together and help form what it is that we will be doing at that point. And one of the main reasons that we're doing this is that the present forms of protection of civilians is not coming close to keeping up with the pace. of the need. If you look at one of the documents that's in our Lumio thread, we're reminded that the UN High Commission on Refugees a couple of months ago reminded us that there are now 80 million of us who have had to flee our homes because of violent conflict. And that number at this very moment, as we painfully watch what's unfolding in Ethiopia, continues to grow. So if we took all protectionist civilian approaches that exist in the world today, whether they be armed, unarmed, whether they be for provided by multinationals or unilateral, multilateral organizations or non-governmental organizations, if we, for the moment, said that all of those were effective, they would come to about here, and the need is there. And here does not get us to there. And so we really have to push ourselves as to what are the ways in which we can work with people so that people are able to live in safe and secure homes. If you look, I'm sure that you watched the results of, or the lack of results that came from Glasgow earlier this week. And one of the very strong findings from the Intergovernmental Committee that formed the working documents for that meeting was that we can expect that there will be continued climate disruption, and those climate disruptions will be causes or drivers of violent conflict. And indeed, if you look at almost every, if not every conflict where we have been involved, any of our organizations today, with maybe a couple of exceptions, every other one, whether it be Mindanao or Colombia or South Sudan, climate disruption is one of the drivers of those conflicts. So we have to really teach ourselves and work with communities that are affected by violent conflict so that we know what are the most effective ways that can be made available for people to be able to protect themselves, to be protected, and to stay in their homes. So then it's back to you, Fatuma.
Can I just interrupt? I just want to confirm that we can release the Spanish, the French interpreter.
So is there anyone who would like to have French interpretation that's on the call right now?
Okay, Carlos, thank you very much. We'll see you again soon.
Okay, thank you very much, Jan. Thank you very much, Mel, for the detailed presentation of the objectives, and I'm happy to see that Ansoumane has joined. If you have just joined us, please, we would like to know your name, your organization, and where you are calling from. So if you could just write that in the chat. So following the objectives, which have clearly given us the scope of what we want to do in this session, I'm going to request Jan to play a video on UCP. This video was produced a few years ago, and we first used it for a briefing at the UN. I know that many of you have already watched it, but it's always refreshing to watch it again. So we take a few minutes to do that. Over to you, Jan. Before that, Jan, Ansoumane has his hand up. Ansoumane.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Fatima, good morning to Mel. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. This morning I have time, so I think if possible you can leave my session at the end so that I do my presentation. I'm now on my way home. Is that okay?
Okay, but how much time would you need for that? Because
okay.
the next 15 minutes ago?
Yes, I'm already on my way home. It's just in 10 minutes. But I'll be following you during the presentation. Yeah, in 10 minutes.
Okay, that works very well.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay.
No,
Thank you.
fine. Thank you so much. Over to you, Ian.
Okay. I'm going to share the screen and bring us over and begin.
At the beginning of the 20th century, the majority of fatalities in conflict were soldiers. And when we fast forward 100 years, and the majority of fatalities are actually civilians. And so the way we approach peacekeeping and civilian protection has to shift. In a place like South Sudan, where since December of 2013, a very serious civil war has displaced millions of people and tens of thousands of people have been killed. When women are moving out to collect firewood or to collect water or other things that they need, they're often targeted for sexual violence as a way to use rape as a weapon of war. In most cases, we see no incidents of violence as long as they're with a protective accompaniment team.
It was quite a surprise. People with weapons coming in saying like, you guys go, you guys go. And we said like, we're not leaving. They would hit the women and children. If we had a gun in those instances, we were like, you know, like an armed peacekeeper, we probably would have been killed.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ian. Very short, but always a very good reminder of what UCP can do. You see it very, very clearly in the 2.5 video. Now, as we go along, I would like you to please write in the chat. Before actually I ask, we are very few on this call, but already we have like a global community because we have people calling in from Germany, from Switzerland, from the US, from Australia, from Kenya, from South Sudan. Welcome aboard, everyone. And that just shows the global nature of what we are doing. So as we are moving along, I would like you, just from what you already know and from what you've watched on the video, could you please write at least 2 advantages of UCP and an accompaniment? And then also write 2 concerns that you may have. Just do that in the chat, we'll be monitoring. In the meantime, I would like to request Mel to introduce our first speaker. Over to you, Mel.
As the video points out, there are now over 50 organizations throughout the world that are doing some form of unarmed civilian protection or accompaniment. And they range from neighborhood groups like Mama Bear in Winnipeg, Canada, which is a group of First Nation women protecting other First Nation women in the city of Winnipeg, to the World Council of Churches that, as we saw in the video, are providing accompaniers in Palestine. We are part of a paradigm shift that is shifting away from violent militaristic ways of dealing with violent conflict and protection of civilians towards a nonviolent way of approaches of not only dealing with conflict, but as a way of being in the world. One of the people who has led that paradigm shift for his entire life, and who I've had the joy to work with on numerous occasions, is my brother Fadi Allam. And Fadi is the president of the Permanent Peace Movement of Lebanon, and also has been a leader within the Global Partnership for the Prevention of Armed Conflict. And so Fadi, if you would please share some thoughts and insights with us.
شكرا مال. السلام عليكم والسلام لكم. ليس السلام إلا ذلك الحلم الذي سعت إليه البشرية منذ وجودها الأول، وليس السلام إلا ذلك الهدف الذي سعى إلى تحقيقه الأنبياء والرسل والقادة الملهمين في كل زمان ومكان. كما أن عظمة وأهمية أي مؤسسة تستمد من مدى استجابتها لوجع الناس، حاجات الناس، حقوق الناس، وهذا ليس إلا السلام بعينه، إنه السلام بعينه. شكرا لقوات السلام اللاعنفية أو UCP ولمؤسسها ميل دونكن ورفاقه في هذه الطريق، ولفريق عمله المخلص على جهودهم التي لا تتوقف من أجل هذه الرسالة. حركة السلام الدائم، المنظمة غير الحكومية اللبنانية التي تأسست خلال الحرب اللبنانية في العام 1986. الحرب اللبنانية دامت من العام 75 حتى العام 90. من مجموعة من الطلاب الجامعيين، إذن كان تأسيس هذه الجمعية من مجموعة طلاب جامعيين لتعمل من أجل السلام ضمن الحرم الجامعي. وكان مفهوم السلام بالنسبة لنا فقط وقف الحرب، وقف العنف. اكتشفنا مع انطلاقتها أن ليس للسلام حدود، فالتقت مع العديد من المنظمات الوطنية التي تشاركت معها الكثير من القضايا والأهداف، فانضمت إلى العديد من التحالفات الوطنية، لأن الذي يعمل إلى السلام هو أيضا يعمل إلى حقوق الإنسان، إلى التنمية، وإلى الإغاثة في معظم جوانبها، وإلى العديد من المجالات الأخرى. انضمينا إلى تحالفات وطنية تعمل على السلم الأهلي، وتعمل على حماية الطفل، وتعمل على العدالة الانتقالية، وأيضا الحد من الأسلحة. كما انضمينا أيضا على الصعيد الإقليمي، فكنا المؤسسين في شبكات إقليمية تهدف إلى الوقاية من النزاعات المسلحة، الحد من الأسلحة، المسؤولية بالحماية، تعليم حقوق الإنسان والتسامح، إضافة إلى إطلاق شبكة اللاعنف في الدول العربية وشبكة الأمن الإنساني. أما على الصعيد العالمي عالميا، فكان وجودنا الفاعل في الشراكة العالمية للوقاية من النزاعات المسلحة، وشراكة العمل الدولية للأسلحة الخفيفة، وتحالف مراقبة الأسلحة، والتحالف الدولي للمسؤولية في الحماية. كما نتشرف بتمثيلنا الوطني لقوات السلام اللاعنفية أو UCP، إلى أن اكتسبنا مقعدا في مجلس أو المجلس الاقتصادي الاجتماعي لدى الأمم المتحدة، مقعد مراقب. أشرت إلى ذلك لأؤكد عالمية السلام ومحليته في نفس الوقت. ليس فقط فكر عالميا واعمل محليا، إنما أيضا فكر محليا واعمل عالميا. أنت العالم والعالم أنت. منذ العام 2001 حيث أطلق كوفي عنان الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة في ذلك الحين مقولته الشهيرة: إن مسؤولية الحفاظ على الأمن والسلم الدوليين هي ليست مسؤولية الأمم المتحدة بمفردها، إنما هي مسؤولية عالمية كونية تشارك فيها المنظمات الدولية والإقليمية كما الدول والمنظمات غير الحكومية المحلية والوطنية. فكان من المركز الأوروبي للوقاية من النزاعات أن يتلقف هذه المقولة ويجعل منها بداية لمسار كان لنا شرف المشاركة في صناعته منذ الأساس، منذ البداية، ليكون لنا الشراكة العالمية للوقاية من النزاعات المسلحة، GPAC Global Partnership for Preventing of Armed Conflict. نعم، النزاعات المسلحة للوقاية من النزاعات المسلحة، لأن الحياة هي نزاعات، إنما النزاع المسلح النزاع العنيف الذي ينتهك حقوق الإنسان والشعوب والأوطان هو الذي يجب أن يتوقف، النزاع المسلح. ومن الأفضل ألا يحصل أبداً، إضافة إلى تأكيدنا على حق الإنسان بالعيش بسلام. فتبادلنا المعارف والخبرات، تبادلنا معا من خلال هذه الشبكة العالمية المعارف والخبرات، وساهمنا بوضع المبادئ، الخطط، وقمنا بالنشاطات الوطنية والإقليمية والدولية، وجعلنا للمجتمع المدني مكانا مرموقا في حلبة الأمن والسلم الدوليين في كل بقاع الأرض. مئات الأبحاث والكتب ودلائل التدريب والدراسات والأفلام الوثائقية، فأغنينا الإنتاج المعرفي بهذه القضية النبيلة. وعاملنا أيضا على بناء القدرات في مختلف عناوين بناء السلام ومجالاته لكل الجهات الفاعلة في هذا المجال، من حكومية وغير حكومية. وقد نكون أول من أطلق مادة تدريبية كاملة حول الأمن الإنساني، وناصرنا بعضنا البعض في 15 منطقة من العالم، محاكين المخاطر التي كانت تتهددها، متضامنين مع الضحايا، رافضين للعنف بكافة أشكاله، داعين إلى الحوار والوسائل السلمية واللا عنف للتعامل مع نزاعاتنا. وكانت لنا أيضا المبادرات التي سعينا من خلالها لوقف دورات العنف وإعادة نسج العلاقة الطبيعية بين مختلف المكونات المتناحرة في منطقتنا، أي منطقة الشرق الأوسط وشمال إفريقيا. حضورنا المدني اللافت نجحنا في التأكيد عليه في العراق، سوريا، السودان، ليبيا واليمن، وحتى في لبنان. وهنا بين هلالين كان لنا تعاون وثيق ورائع جدا مع UCP مع Non-Violence Peace Forces في سوريا لمشروع ترك الأثر الطيب على المجتمع السوري، ومن خلاله تم إطلاق الكثير من المبادرات التي بني عليها لاحقاً لتطوير الوضع نسبياً إلى الأفضل، دون أن ننسى العلاقة الوثيقة التي نشأت بيننا وبين جامعة الدول العربية. فكان لنا منذ أسابيع قليلة أن ننهي مع جامعة الدول العربية الخطة العربية الشاملة لحظر إشراك الأطفال في النزاعات المسلحة. واليوم عملنا قائم على تفعيل دور المرأة في بناء السلام وفقا لقرار مجلس الأمن 1325، ودور الشباب في بناء السلام وفقا لقرار مجلس الأمن 2250. أيها السادة، نحن نعمل في منطقة للذي لا يعلم بالأرقام لبعض عواقب الحروب التي القائمة لدينا. نحن في منطقة يشكل سكانها ما يقارب 5% من سكان العالم. في المقابل لدينا 47% من النازحين داخليا، و57.5% من اللاجئين في العالم، و18% من الصراعات العنيفة تدور رحاها في منطقتنا من العام 48 حتى العام 2014. والهجمات الإرهابية 45% منها كانت في هذه المنطقة في العام 2014، و68% من الوفيات المرتبطة بالصراعات المسلحة. نعم، نحن نعمل في هذه المنطقة. ختاما أود القول أنه لا يقوم سلام من غير شراكة، لا يقوم سلام من غير شراكة، والشراكة هي مسار تفاعلي لقادة كان لقاءهم على الدفاع عن حقوق الإنسان وحمايتها. السلام هو ليس إلا سوى أحجار من الحقوق نجمعها ونبنيها في كل موقع لتصبح هذه الأرض فضاء رحب لسلام موعود نمضي معا بطريقنا إليه. لا شك إننا اليوم نتطلع إلى المزيد من التعاون مع قوات السلام اللاعنفية، لأنها بعملها الفريد والمميز، فيما لو أشركنا أنفسنا أكثر معهم وأدخلنا عملهم إلى مؤسساتنا سنكون في موقع أفضل لملاقاة ضرورات السلام العالمي. والسلام عليكم وشكرا لإصغائكم.
Thank you, Fadi. We do have to all work globally, and we cannot accomplish this by ourselves. So thank you for reminding us of this, but more importantly, living this every day of your life. I would now like to introduce our second speaker. Is Ansoumane on? Are you with us, Ansoumane?
Yes, I'm here with you. I'm here with
great.
you. Okay.
Ansoumane Souare is one of the leaders of the West African Network for Peace Building, which I have seen in a variety of settings, and really offers one of the strongest examples of regional work for peace building and preventing armed conflict. And this work goes on each and every day, and our planet is much better because of the work of WANA. And so Ansoumane, if you would please take 10 minutes to share your reflections.
Okay. Thank you very much, Neil, for this great opportunity. First of all, let me apologize for coming in late. Last night, when Neil sent me a message, a mail about to ask me whether I have presentation to make, and just after that, I felt some pain, and I rushed to hospital. That's why, I couldn't join people on time. So I'm very sorry for that. So I have a presentation to share with you people. I don't know whether that will be possible. I have a presentation.
Yes, Jan, can you allow Ansoumane to share screen, please?
Yep, it is done.
Okay, John, thank you very much. Maybe I will try. You said 10 minutes. I will try. I will try to stay in that. It's not easy, but I just have to try and stick to that time. Okay. Once again, thank you very much, and I'm very happy to see John, Tiffany, Mil, Fatima. We all were doing the regional workshop in Kenya. So I'm very happy to see you people again. So talking about the ONEP experience in West Africa. That is how I'm going to make this presentation. First of all, I'll give an overview of peace and security in West Africa. And for those who are not familiar with ONEP, I also think that it will be good to give like a sort of background about ONEP. And just after that, I will speak about our programs and focusing on peace education and also the ONE program, which is the early warning program. And our experience also in terms of violent extremism prevention in West Africa, we'll talk about that a bit. And also just to throw some light on our strategic plan for 2021-2025 in order for partner to see where you could partner with ONEP for the next coming years. And I'll also talk about some of the challenges and opportunities. After that, I'll also give some recommendations. So I don't know, you can see, I don't know whether you can see my screen. Is it okay?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we can, but if you could put it on presentation mode.
Okay. Thank you very much. So as we all know, West Africa is faced with enormous security, political, economic, social, and environmental challenges, which continue to have negative impact on human security across countries in the region. So given these challenges and their consequences on communities across West Africa, early warning and peace education in the context of UCP have become more than necessity in protecting civilians during violent conflicts in the region. So just to show you this graph, as you can see, this year alone, from Q1 to Q3, these are terrorist-related armed attack recorded in West Africa from January to September 30th. So you see in Q1, more than 623 people were killed, and when you take Q2, you see 1,479, people were killed in violent extremism activities. As you can see here also, these are the fatalities recorded in Q3. So just to show you how daunting the security challenge in West Africa has become. So these are, I also decided to show you some of the governance related protests and demonstrations in West Africa from 2018, 2021, 2018. So just to show you how, the security challenge is in West Africa. So you can see in let me start with 2018. You see the number of demonstrations that happened. you can see the number of people killed and the number of people injured. That is to show you how, the security is in West Africa. So that is a big background about WANEP. So for those who are not familiar with WANEP, WANEP is a civil society organization established in 1998, following the civil war that West Africa experienced in the 90s. So, what necessitated this creation? At that time, there was no viable civil society that could engage state authorities, in the area of peace building. So now we have our offices. WANEP has succeeded in establishing, in all the West African countries, 8 networks. So I think where we are experiencing some challenges is Cape Verde. But even with that challenge, we have the focal point who is giving us, information about peace and security dynamics in Cape Verde. So as I speak now, we have 600 civil society organizations who are member of, WANEP. So just to tell you how, how far we have reached. And also in 2004, WANEP, also signed an MOU with the West Africa ECOWAS in the area of early warning, the implementation of early warning in West Africa. So just recently in 2016, WANEP also signed, an MOU with the African Union to support the continental early warning system, which is the QS. So since then, we have now our liaison offices in those institutions, ECOWAS and the AU. So that is just to show you an overview of our programs. So as I said earlier, the early warning and early response is the flagship program of WANEP. But apart from the early warning, we have youth peace and security. We have peace building programs. We have election management, media peace and security. Media peace and security. We have gender peace and security. We also have infrastructure for peace, dialogue, and mediation. So these are, the program. These are some of the programs, WANEP has. So in terms of our early warning program, as I said, the early warning program has been the flagship program of WANEP. So since the institution started in 1998, up to now, that is the main program of WANEP. So, and I think some of you might have heard about the news program, which is the National Early Warning System. One of the tasks, WANEP give itself was to have like a fully functional early warning system across the 15 countries of West Africa. And it was part of our strategic plan, 2015-2020. And so far, I can say that we have, succeeded in doing that. Because when you look at all the 15 countries, we have early warning systems that are fully functional, in all these countries. So the news program came just to strengthen the WARN program, because when you see, we are of the belief that many violent conflicts start at community level. So that is why, we try to decentralize our, early warning program to reach those communities that are, at risk of man-made and natural disasters. So, and also when you look at the news program, is also to enhance human security and socio-economic development across across country in the region. So we also have monitors, 500 community monitors who are working for us across the 15 countries, just to give us real-time information on violent conflict and human rights violations. So our peace education program focuses on conflict resolution. We also have democracy education, non-violence education, global citizenship education, environmental education, and human rights education. So that is our approach to peace education. So when you look at the formal level, we try to implement those programs in schools, tertiary sectors, and universities. For the informal sector, we focus on families, communities, churches, and mosques, and some youth organizations across West Africa. So we also do peer mediation, one-on-one engagement, focus group discussion, capacity building. So these are our approach to peace education in West Africa. So because of time, I may not be able to elaborate on some of those things. So our experience when it comes to violent extremism prevention in West Africa. So since the emergence of terrorism and violent extremism in West Africa, one of the first things UNEP did was to embark on the development of indicators to monitor the threat of violent extremism and in the Sahel, especially Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and Nigeria. And after we developed the indicators, we tried to also validate those indicators, and monitors were trained before they started sending us information on threats to violent extremism and terrorism in communities across West Africa. So we have been constantly reviewing our indicators just to capture new dynamics in the region. So we also we have conducted research and studies on VE in the region, especially in Nigeria, Guinea, Ghana, because of the threat that is now facing the coastal countries, countries like Cote d'Ivoire, for instance, Ghana, Benin, and Togo. So we also conducted research to understand some of the threats facing those countries. So we have also developed a curriculum for the prevention of violent extremism in the Sahel and Burkina Faso and other countries like Niger, Mali, and Nigeria. So for instance, in Burkina Faso, we have a project called the Promotion of Peace in the Sahel. Through that project, we have also set up radicalization monitoring system in schools. So we also develop indicators just to monitor violent extremism in those areas. We also organize training for focal points on data collection on radicalization in school. We also strengthen the collaboration between the defense and security forces and the local population. And some of this, the activity we undertook were like organizing soccer competition, dialogue between the actors in the community. We also organize symposia for women preachers and other queen mothers for them to understand, their roles when it comes to the prevention and the peaceful management of conflict in community across Burkina Faso. For instance, in Niger, UNEP works closely with partners such as the UNDP, Search for Common Ground, and other partners to improve civil-military collaboration in terms of information sharing in respect to violent extremism-related incident in areas like Bankilari, Torodi, Yerowu, and Terra. Those areas are in the Tillabéri region. So for instance, in Difa, which is one of the hotspot area when it comes to violent extremism. So UNEP has also embarked on, social economic reintegration of former ex-combatant, Boko Haram ex-combatant, just to strengthen collaboration between the defense and security forces and the population. UNEP also does this work in collaboration with peace committee that are set up with by the High Authority for Peace and Consultation in Niger, which is a government institution. So these peace committees are, are made up with community leaders, chaired by a municipal mayors. So the communities are established in the areas affected by insecurity in Niger. So one of the roles that one plays within this peace committee is just to support, give technical support to the committee's members when it comes to peace and security in their communities. So in Nigeria, for instance, we have a project on radicalization monitoring and response system, which we have set up in Borno, Yobe, Adamawa State. So what is the purpose for this radicalization monitoring system? So it's to seek to develop an effective system to monitor radicalization processes, also identify risk group and respond adequately in the selected communities across the state I just mentioned. So, and apart from that, also we have a project on security and rule of law, which the purpose of this project is just to prevent and counter violent extremism, and also rehabilitation and reintegration project. So people who were affected, especially ex-combatants, those who were involved in Boko Haram activities. So this project is geared toward these people. So we also, there's a coalition building for countering violent extremism, which aim to build coalition across political, ethnic, and religious divides for the purpose to counter violent extremism. So in Mali, so some of the things we have been doing over the years is to enlighten communities about some of these concepts, like violent extremism, radicalization, fundamentalism, peace, culture of peace, violence, just for them to understand. Because when you want to fight against something, it's better for you to understand the thing. But if you don't have good knowledge or appropriate knowledge, it will be very difficult for you to fight against that threat. So let me just throw some light on our election monitoring analysis and mitigation program. So WANEP also has this program. So whenever there is election, we make sure that this program is implemented in countries. So one of the first thing when we are embarking on this project is just to set up election response group, both at the national, regional, and district level. So here we focus more on inclusivity, because whoever talk about a lasting peace, we have to talk about inclusivity. Without inclusivity, it becomes very challenging to have an inclusive peace. So from there also, when we are implementing this project, we try to hold regular meetings with the national response group and the regional response group, just to make sure that some of the threats or incidents that may affect the peaceful conduct of the election are well taken care of. So we make sure that, yes.
Ansoumane, I hate to do this, but if you could come to a close at this point,
okay,
we can come
so
back
let me just wrap up.
Thank you.
So that is our new strategy plan, which focus more on inclusivity. So just to let partners know that in the coming years, these are some of the activities we'll be doing. So in terms of challenges, when you look at the peace and security landscape in West Africa, is evolving and also a very complex in nature. So that is why it makes our effort very, very complicated, because whenever you embark on new things, there are new security threats that emerge. So, and it makes everything our work very challenges. We also noticed that there is poor documentation when it comes to UCP initiative undertaken at the community level in the region. So lack of financial support, especially when it comes to funding dedicated to early warning and peace education. There's also lack of political will, when it comes to peace education, the implementation of peace education, especially in schools. So the lack of a holistic approach to peace education, there's also gaps in terms of coordination and collaboration between different actors working in the field. There's also lack of proper understanding when it comes to the interest of peace education in the region. So in terms of opportunities, we are seeing that the implementation of normative framework when it comes to democracy, good governance, human rights, and inclusive processes. The growing citizen awareness, so especially women group and youth group. So we also have peace infrastructure. So people are now getting more aware about peace infrastructures. So we also the national reconciliation commissions. We are now seeing across West Africa some initiative in that direction. So local and traditional leaders are also getting involved in those initiatives. So we are also there is also interfaith dialogue that we are seeing that is gaining ground in West Africa. Election management bodies are trying also to be proactive in terms of some of the challenges. Civil society organization involvement and also media organizations. So recommendation, I think it will be good to strengthen local peace infrastructures in communities where we operate. It is also good that we empower community members and other relevant actors in data collection and information sharing. It's also important that we should continue funding for early warning and peace education initiative to strengthen UCP initiative across the region. Ensure also that youth and gender dimension of peace building initiative are well addressed across the region. And there's also need to strengthen collaboration and synergy among UCP actors across the region. So thank you very much for your attention. And also I'm sorry for taking for going beyond 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ansoumane. And I'm sorry about the compressed time, because you should never have to apologize for bringing good news.
Okay.
And indeed, you brought us good news. So thank you. Fatuma, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mel, and thank you very much, Ansoumane. We could spend the whole time listening to you because there's so much. Now we have a few minutes for questions and answers. Please, if you have a question, you can either put up your hand or you can write on the chat. And the questions should be to Ansoumane and Fadi. We just have like 5 minutes. I can see Berit. Berit, please go ahead. I would like to request that we keep the questions really, really short so that we can have time for the speakers to respond. Over to you, Berit.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fatuma. I have an observation on something that Fadi said more than a question. Fadi said something about peace being a building, and we need kind of all the different parts to come together for the building to hold. And I wondered a little bit, based on my research on kind of peace building processes, whether we would better think about peace perhaps as a patchwork or a quilt or something that, so thinking about the UCP community, I don't see so much a building, more something that's a bit more organic, and where it doesn't matter so much if there's a hole or something, because you can mend holes, or you can, I don't know, knit a new piece and bring it in. The problem a little bit with the building is that quite often there's somebody who thinks they are the architect and they should determine how it works. right? So there's one person who's giving the instructions. And I think if you think about quilting processes, for example, where communities come together and work together to make little pieces and then make that into a big blanket, kind of a safety blanket, so to speak, or that for me as a metaphor, I think it works more to describe this community. I mean, that's not a very substantive contribution, but I was just thinking about this, and I wonder whether we should think more about textiles rather than bricks.
Thanks very much, Berit. That is really food for thought. Yeah, the kilt. I'm also thinking about the building, okay, the engineer, the architect, but also the firmness. The kilt may tear out and things. I think really pros and cons of thinking about the two imageries. I hope we'll have time to discuss that further. Yeah, but I can see Fadi may want to respond. Fadi, please go ahead.
شكرا، اتفق تماما مع يلي سمعته حقيقه من الصديقه بريت، انما اريد ان اضيف امر قد يكون مرتبط ايضا بهذه المساله، وهو اهم درس تعلمته في مسيرتي من اجل بناء السلام منذ العام 86. عند الانطلاق، عندما انطلقنا كان ينظر الينا العالم باستخفاف، ونحن في جو حرب. عام 86 كنا في خضم الحرب، وكنت أنا في بدء شبابي، يعني عمري 18 عام، وأنا مهجر، كنت displaced، يلي هلا رجعت على هالبيت الحجر مع كورونا، لأنه اضطرينا مع كورونا مغادرة المنزل بالمدينة إلى جبل. فآمل بلقائك ميل بهيدا البيت القديم اللي أنا عايش فيه هلا. بهديك الوقت، في ذلك الوقت كان ينظر إلينا العالم باستخفاف. أنتم ستصنعون السلام، من أنتم؟ مجموعة شباب بجامعة. وأيضا تحدي آخر، لمن تعملون؟ من يدفع لكم؟ نظرية المؤامرة موجودة في عالمنا بشكل رهيب، كل شيء يقوم هذا مؤامرة. اكتشفت مع الوقت أنه ليس هنالك لا إنسان ولا مجموعة ولا مؤسسة ولا كيان مهما عظم شأنه هذا الكيان، لا دولة عظمى كالولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، ولا منظمة دولية عامة شاملة كما الأمم المتحدة، لا أحد بمفرده يستطيع أن يبني سلام حتى لذاته. وأيضا بالمقابل ليس هنالك من فرد مهما تواضع هذا الفرد ويعيش في بلدة نائية لا وسيلة اتصال لديه، هذا الإنسان يمكن أن يكون نموذج لبناء سلام وسلام كامل. حتى لا أحد مهما عظم شأنه يستطيع أن يبني كل السلام، ولا أحد مهما قل شأنه له الحق أن يقول لا أستطيع أن أضيف شيء إلى بناء السلام. وشكرا.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Fadi. You are just expanding more and more on this powerful imagery. I still think there's really a lot of food for thought. Now you've even brought other types of building, leave alone brick and mortar. So yeah, I think let's keep that in our minds as we go along. I don't know whether anybody else has a question or comment.
There's one in the chat, Fatuma.
Okay. Okay, and this is to Ansoumane. What do you think is your next step on addressing the challenge mentioned on cooperation and coordination around the UNEP peace work? Ansoumane, please, over to you.
Yes, you know, at UNEP, we believe in partnership, and that is one of the salient points that UNEP, you know, believes in. So we are trying to improve on that, and also looking for new partners, because when you look at the region, we have been able to establish strong partnership with civil society organizations. We have more than 600 civil society organizations who are members of WANEP. So going forward, I think just to strengthen that partnership with local organizations, also international partners, who are also interested in the UCP.
Thank you very much, Ansoumane, for that very brief and clear response. We should be going to groups, and soon Jan will put us in groups. But before we do that, I would just like to kindly quickly recap on the advantages and concerns about UCP. We got a few people to respond, and some of the ideas that are coming out are really very interesting, and they actually apply to both the presentation that Fadi made and the one that Ansoumane has just made. Very quickly, some of the advantages that have come up.
I'm not hearing Fatima.
We've lost the audio.
Okay.
Jen?
Yeah.
Sorry. Can you hear me now? Okay, some of the advantages include, one, UCP can prevent harm for individuals facing violence, as we've already seen from the two presentations. UCP is also inclusive. It's an inclusive approach, and it contributes to balancing out asymmetrical power imbalances that always allow violence to occur. And then somebody else said UCP strategies are better adapted to local needs and do not really require huge structures to be efficient. Somebody else said UCP is humane, it's respectful, and is also collaborative. From what we've seen from the presentation, that was a point. UCP can also demilitarize our thinking, I like that, and how to address violent conflict. UCP also recognizes people's agency, the power that they have within them. UCP changes the framework of how we understand and act, and it also brings people together. It provides positive experiences and results to building more peace teams. I think from both presentations, we've seen that. And here are some of the concerns, and some of which have already come out in the presentations, particularly the one Ansoumane has just made. One, UCP can become overly codified, checklisted, and then it loses its connection to values and systems and humanity, really countering the first one. UCP can also become very instrumentalized and can become an add-on feature to justify the quality of armed forces and force responses that we see when we are comparing that with UN peacekeeping missions. Sustainability can be an issue, replicating could be also an issue, funding is an enormous constraint, gaining respect, credibility, and transforming belief in violence as best path towards security. It's also difficult to replicate structures of power that bring about, how not to replicate structures of power that bring about violence in the first place. How do we move forward with decolonization, paternalization, and so on? Another concern is that UCP can act like a startup activity when much of what we do needs long-term thinking and long-term commitment. It also needs appropriate attention to self-care and well-being of the support team members and partners. We've seen that actually. Another concern is that UCP brings an alternative thinking about security into education very early on, and people have issues with understanding that. So that perhaps would help us as we go into the groups, which are now going to be much shorter than we had planned. I don't know whether we still have to, yeah, we have a few minutes, I think, to do that. So Jan, could you take us to the groups, please?
Sure, I got a message from Mel that maybe wanted
No.
to reconsider.
No, we'll
Two
go to
groups?
groups. Yes. And the
Okay.
questions that we'd like you to consider are in the chat while you're in small groups. And let's take 10 minutes in small groups. But
And-
before we do that, there's something more important. Ansoumane, will you please introduce who has joined us? Unmute, please.
Yes, it's my son. Hello.
Welcome.
Hello. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Mel, I apologize if we went over this before. Should we just make them random, or did you want me to predict them?
Random is fine as long as we have Fadi and Ansoumane in the different groups.
Okay, I probably should do it. I can't trust that will happen, so I'll have to do it manually. Take me just a minute.
That's all right.
Okay,
Jen has-
and then for how long?
10 minutes, please.
10 minutes, okay. Stand by, everybody, while I make the group assignments.
And while
And
Jan
the
is doing,
interpreters,
okay.
how do you want to handle interpretation? Do you want to just do one group?
Yeah, or Fadi, is it okay that we do the small groups in English?
Okay, so we'll do 2 groups and they will be in English, and the interpreters have a 10-minute break.
Thank you.
No problem, Mel. Yalla, let's go ahead.
And
Mel,
while Jan, oh,
Mel, since we have only 10 minutes, do you want to focus us on just 2 of the questions or?
good idea, Adele. Let's continue to focus on how can the community of practice benefit the world at large, especially those communities that are facing violent conflict. And then number 3, what are the opportunities we have to collaborate cross-organizationally? And as I think about that, and Jan's separating us, I think about Fadi's metaphor that they were like a bird singing in the vacuum. Hopefully now we are a chorus and that our voices are becoming stronger.
Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Here we go.
Well, welcome back, everyone. We have just a few minutes left. So can I ask a representative from the group that Fadi was in to share a couple of major points that you heard?
Sure. I was the note taker. For everybody's reading purposes, I put the notes we took in the chat so they can be recorded directly. And we really just talked about the importance of coming together and learning from each other, and really recognized what a richness of experience there is across and the world, and how if we were able to be in touch with each other more and in more of a community, there's so much learning that we can do and inspiration we can gain from one another. So we can learn, you know, what works in some places, where struggles have been. We always tend to focus when we come together on really talking about the positives, and that's helpful, but it's also really helpful to learn what's really hard, what we've tried and what didn't work, and how we tried to overcome that, or just had to change directions. Or looking for examples. We really looked at this example and talked quite a bit about the early warning system in WANEP, having something as big as 500 monitors, and how that could be really inspirational and not something we just copy and paste somewhere else. I think that was a key message across the board, is none of us think it's cookie cutter or we can copy and paste everything, but we can really learn and then be inspired. And especially for new individuals, small organizations, whatever form they take, can start up on a much more sure footing if if they have the opportunity to engage with other practitioners, rather than feeling like they're starting from zero and inventing things from the beginning.
Thanks, Tiffany. And Shane, do you want to share a couple top lines that you heard from our small group?
Okay, put me on the spot.
Sorry.
All right. Having a community of practice can really help legitimize and facilitate more people being involved. And a lot of the work we do, we find that we're inspired by our partners, and that even though we might have an international network, a lot of those people that we work with want to be able to replicate the work they're doing or a model that we're bringing. So to help facilitate more people being involved. We had some concerns about being another added layer of work, that you've got your own internal organization work to do and your own partner work to do, and then running a community of practice is another effort on top of that. Sorry, what have I missed? There were things that you brought up, Mel, and also that Ansoumane brought up. Elliot, did you have notes on those?
Anybody else from group 2 want to add a point? Okay, we're going to go to our closing, but before we do that, Jan is going to share a couple of questions for us to poll ourselves and to see where we're at. And so Jan, if you would proceed with that, please.
Okay, give me just a minute to pull the poll up. Session 14. There we go. I realize those of you who are co-hosts, I think, can't participate. All right, I think we can end that poll.
Great.
And question 2, Jan, please.
All right, let's stop sharing that one and start with the next one. Now about 30 more seconds. All right, does anybody need more time? Okay, we'll end this one and share it.
All right, well, that's an interesting snapshot about, first of all, there was no disagreement in terms of a community of practice, but there were also some very keen reservations that have come up that I think we have to attend to, like what Shane shared from our group about this would be one more thing for people who are already very busy and very focused. And we would not want to draw energy away from the critical work that happens on the ground. But as this poll shows, there can be, we can support each other at the grassroots to provide UCP and increase our ability to monitor and evaluate and document. Our stories, one of the things that I've seen in working with now about 60 organizations that have been doing some form of this work is those stories are not being documented and those stories are not being told. And we are not really putting the strong case. We already have a strong case. It could be much stronger if we document and tell those stories. And then that we are creating that effective alternative to militarized protection, which by default, because of lack of imagination and because of the power of the military industrial complex, people think, oh, you have to apply military solutions and that they think that we're counterintuitive, when in fact we are applying solutions as what came up in our small group that groups have been doing all along, that come out of the cultural and historical practices of groups from throughout the world. And so really, more than doing capacity building, what we're doing is capacity recognition and capacity strengthening, because we already have such a strong base that is within each of us that's out there. And I think that that's what we appeal to in our work of our individual organizations, and that we can appeal to collectively. So Fatuma, would you please share any last words with us?
Yeah, very, very quickly. Thank you very much, Mel. I think the poll has actually spoken. First of all, in terms of community of practice, it seems like everybody agrees that it would be a good thing. But I just want to mention a few takeaways from the speakers. First of all, from Fadi, what came out very strongly is working with the local organizations, how UCP really enhances that. And it also enhances the participation of all the organizations that are working in there, both international and national. But I liked his quote saying that the responsibility of maintaining peace is the responsibility of everyone. So you can do your little work here and there, but if everyone comes together, then the better. You cannot accomplish peace and maintain it just by ourselves. That's what he said. With Ansoumane, of course, there's a lot of learning from what ONEP is doing. And I think very important and also very clear is the work they are doing with the early warning system. It's actually become almost globalized. I remember using it as examples when I was working in the Philippines. So that is really important. And then the formal and informal approaches that ONEP uses, using structures, existing structures like schools, universities, and so on. But then going and working with families, communities also is an important aspect. I think a few challenges have come out quite clearly related to issues of resources, about replication, issues around coordination, and so on. But I would like to end on the powerful imagery that both Fadi and Berit put forward, one referring to peace building as a building, and also looking at it as a quilt. I think very powerful, and we need to keep on thinking about that. We've ended the poll with, I think, a good summary of what we want to see moving forward. Back to you, Mel.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for all of your participation, everyone who's here at this moment. Especially, I want to say thank you again to our interpreters who have been with us and done a really outstanding job throughout this gathering, and to Elliot, who is with us and is taking the top line notes for this session so that we can put them together in a report that Christina will be writing. So there's more to come. At 1500 UTC, there will be a session on unarmed civilian protection and corporate and other forms of crime. At 1700, there will be a session on knowledge creation. And if you liked what you just experienced right now, we will be doing this workshop again at 1900 UTC. So I look forward to seeing you all sometime during the rest of the day, and thank you for being here. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Mel. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.